Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Gary Sinise and Joe Mantegna co-host the National Memorial Day concert tonight on PBS. I spoke with both actors about the annual tradition, starting with Lieutenant Dan himself.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
You're co-hosting with Joe again, right?
Yes. I started doing the Memorial Day concert in 2005. Started co-hosting in 2006. I was just a part of it in 2005, and then they asked me to come back and host it with Joe. And I've been doing that ever since. We just wouldn't miss it. It's one of my favorite things to do each year. It's a great way to pay tribute to those who have sacrificed for our country, given their lives. We have great performers every year that are going to be a part of it. You know, obviously Joe's going to be a part of the concert this year, as always. He's always there, and we just wouldn't miss it.
Yeah.
It's always a very moving and uplifting way to honor those who have, paid a price for our freedom.
That's what it's all about. You're always so great and generous with your time with the troops.
We play so much for the military. With my foundation, the Gary Sinise Foundation, we put on festivals at our military hospitals. Walter Reed, for the men and women who are serving there, who are going through rehabilitation, the staff members and families that are at the hospital. We do these all over the country. And
I mean, of all the stuff you do, this has to be one of those annual most rewarding things you've done, more than even the acting or any of that, to be able to go into Walter Reed like that and play in sort of a private, closed to the public sort of thing. Just why is that always so, special for you?
Well, we've done, I've been going to these hospitals for years. My foundation was just launched in 2011, and prior to that, I had the band, and we had done a couple of concerts at Walter Reed, at the old Walter Reed, and quite a number of USO shows and different military charities going back to 2003. So when I started my foundation, I wanted to create something where we could kind of go into the hospitals where people are, can be going through rehabilitation for several years. I mean, and their families are there with them, and the staff members are just, they're dealing with one wounded service member after another, and it can be kind of a long haul. And so, somebody like me coming in with a band, I have my friend Robert Irvine. He's a celebrity chef. He comes in and cooks food.
Oh, that's awesome.
We've got some great sponsors, and we put up moon bounces and things for the kids, and we just wanted to create a festival atmosphere so that the people at the hospital would be lifted up, and it might help them through the daily grind of going through their rehabilitation. That's just one of the programs at my foundation. Yeah, I've been supporting the GI Film Festival, though, going back. I remember the first one. Brandon and Laura, who run it, are very dedicated, and they have built it over the years, a lot of great sponsors have jumped on board. And now, if you have a military-themed film, that is a go-to place for your film to be launched. At the second festival, I was an executive producer on a documentary that ended up in the festival, and the filmmaker won the award for it.
That's so awesome.
And that helped launch his film around the country. So it's a very, very good festival, and it celebrates the service of our, the men and women who defend us all.
You're definitely proud of the Lieutenant Dan thing. You've named the band after it, and I'm sure troops come up to you all the time talking about it. It's dealing with, a war handicap, he loses his legs, but even more than that, speaks sort of that transformation that Dan, the character, goes through of, wanting to die in battle like his ancestors and suddenly learning to live again, really, and finding his peace with God.
I think that's the whole story. It's a hopeful story. It's an understandable story where you see the ugliness of war, and you get your legs blown off, and you're injured. Lieutenant Dan has he feels very guilty for walking his platoon into an ambush and losing his men and that kind of thing. So he's carrying a lot of anguish, a lot of anger, a lot of sadness with him. But ultimately, at the end of that story, he's standing up again. He's a successful businessman. He's married. He's moving on with his life, and that's the story that we want for all our service members coming back from war. And I think maybe that's why that particular character resonates with them so much.
Magic legs. All right, thanks so much, sir. It's an honor, and thanks again for all you do for the troops. We really appreciate it, especially here in D.C.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
I next hopped on the phone with Joe Mantegna to preview this Sunday's lineup.
Hey, Joe, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It's become a bit of an annual tradition here. What makes you keep coming back?
Well, for me, it's the most important thing I really do every year because it's in my mind, Memorial Day is our most important holiday because it's the holiday which allows us to have every other holiday in this country. So in other words, without the sacrifices made by the men and women throughout our history in our military from Revolutionary War to today, we wouldn't be able to have a Labor Day or an Easter or a President's Day or any other holiday. So I just think it's important to take that moment, stop, and really understand why we set aside this day and why it's such an important day. And I think the concert, all you got to do is devote 90 minutes to watching this concert, and you'll understand exactly why Memorial Day is so important. And that's why I do it.
Absolutely. Additionally, on your co-host here, we have Gary Sinise again. You guys have co-hosted a bunch of times. How many times is this now? Do you know?
Well, this is my 20th year doing it. And then I brought Gary in. I think I was in my third year doing it when I actually suggested that we have Gary come in with his band because he was such a patriot and such a strong supporter of our military that we all felt it was a great idea. They came in and performed that year, and I was hosting at that point because Ozzie Davis, who used to host the show, had passed away, and I became the host. And Gary was so taken by the experience as much as I had been 3 years prior. He said, Joe, I'll come and do this as often as you want. And then we all suggested, well, why don't we just do it together? So I think this is our 17th year now doing it together, Gary and I. So it's been a good long run, and we both just feel very, very proud and humbled to be able to do it.
And then I know Steve Buscemi's going to be doing a 20th anniversary of 9/11. We actually just spoke with him yesterday. That was wild to hear his story. But yeah, explain how cool it is that Steve's going to be doing that. His connection to the firefighters.
Well, yeah, I mean, Steve being a former New York firefighter himself, and then I go back to the very first concert I did with 2002, which was right after 9/11. Steve was also on the program then. So for me, it's a real return to from 20 years ago to be able to share, doing this concert with Steve again. So he's a perfect one to be able to make a comment on the 20th anniversary of that. And then we have, people like Kathy Baker, a dear friend of mine, who's going to be doing the words of this wonderful Vietnam era nurse who was the founder of the Vietnam Women's Memorial in Washington, D.C. And yeah, I mean, people like Joe Morton, we've got Vince Gill, we've got, in terms of performers, Alan Jackson, we've got Mary McCormick from West Wing, we've got Gladys Knight performing, Four Tops, and General Colin Powell once again. So again, it's just an incredible lineup of talent, and it's 90 minutes, I think, just well served for people to tune in. And like I say, they'll come away with a real understanding and appreciation of what Memorial Day is all about, and also feel that they've been educated and entertained and moved.
Yeah, I mean, even if this was just a regular show on a random weekend, I mean, it'd be worth tuning in just for, Alan Jackson and Vince Gill and Sarah Bareilles and Denise Graves and the Four Tops and Gladys Knight. I mean, right. that itself is amazing. But then you add, the weight and the heft of Memorial Day. It's just an amazing concert. Talk about how it's sort of a somber occasion because we're honoring all we've lost, but it's even more so this year coming out of the COVID pandemic. I assume you guys, a lot of this was sort of pre-taped this year.
Yeah, I mean, once again, necessity is the mother of invention. So obviously, it would be impossible to do as we would normally do, which is do it live from the West Lawn of the Capitol with over 200,000 people in actual physical attendance. So, God willing, we should be able to do that next year as things now as kind of getting better in terms of that. But it's forced us to get imaginative with how we do the show, and I think we did. I think they've come up with a really great kind of formula to do that. Gary and I pre-taped a lot of our stuff. They did remote things with the other talent all over the country. And so I think in many ways it's going to be a little different, but in many ways it's going to be kind of excitingly different. And I think we've even learned some things from it that we may be able to incorporate into even future broadcasts of the show. So I'm looking forward to seeing it myself, because we've had a whole year to think about it and to kind of come up with new and entertaining and imaginative ways of doing the concert. And so I feel very good about it.
Definitely. You've said in the past about how, the first thing when you think of Memorial Day, so many people conjure up, backyard barbecues and Indy 500, stuff like that. But talk about why this is an annual reminder of what it's really all about.
Yeah, I mean, what it did for me was, and I was one of those people. I mean, I had a lot of family in the military, but they all came back. There wasn't anyone to mourn in terms of a loss because of Memorial Day. So for me, it was all about the Indianapolis 500 and barbecues, just like many other people. But by doing this concert, boy, it really enlightened me to the point where, as I've often said, it's become our most important holiday. And the reason it's our most important holiday is because it's the holiday that allows us to have all the other holidays. In other words, without paying tribute on Memorial Day, we wouldn't have a 4th of July. We wouldn't have a President's Day. We wouldn't have a Labor Day. We wouldn't have Easter. We wouldn't have any of those holidays, because the United States of America would not exist as we know it. Freedom isn't free, and these people paid that price. And so because of it, that's why, to me, that's what's so great about this concert, because you can watch it. You can devote taking 90 minutes out of this holiday that's been bestowed upon you, and check this out. And you come away from this and you tell me that you haven't been, both moved and enlightened and entertained and all those things. And I get so many emails every year from people who say, wow, I've watched it for the first time. It just knocked me out, and now I totally understand why, Memorial Day is such an important day for this country. And to me, that's it. And again, I just say, just check it out and you'll understand. I did. That's what did it for me. That's why I'm back 20 years strong,
Oh, yeah. Your consistency with this thing, sir, is it just shows how selfless you've been over the years. And they deserve it. Everyone who's served and given their lives deserves it. So I love how selfless you've been. But I'm going to give you a chance to talk about your own career for a second before we run. I know Coppola redid The Godfather Part 3 this year with the re-edit, or maybe that was last year. I can't remember. This year's a blur. But the memories of working on that film, man. I mean, the Part 1 and 2, as a combined piece of work, might be the greatest film ever made. But you got to be part of Part 3. That's so cool.
Yeah, it certainly was. As my dear friend Vinny Guastafaro told me when I got the job, he said, "Wow, you're going to be in the Italian Star Wars." So that's what I was like. But yeah, I mean, I feel very blessed to have had the career I've had, including Godfather 3 and all the stuff I've done for, this is my 51st year as a professional actor. So I feel very blessed to have had the opportunity to do that. And again, all the more reason for me to be, grateful for sacrifices these, people have made throughout our history to allow people like myself to live the life that we've been able to live in this country. So yeah, I've been very, very lucky that way, and very, very fortunate, and just happy to be here.
Oh yeah, there's a million roles we really could talk to you about. I mean, I think you got a Globe nod for Dean Martin in the Rat Pack TV movie. What was it like playing Dean? Did you walk around with a drink in your hand all the time as like a method actor?
There was certainly good moments of that in there. Yeah, it was either a cigarette in one hand and a drink in the other, but that was just kind of de rigueur for that era of those people. But that was again a real highlight of my career, to be able to play Dean Martin, who I admired so much. Maybe
one more. I know David on Criminal Minds is what most of our viewers will probably know, at least from network TV. How much of a blessing was it to be able to play such that's a consistent work for you there for like over a decade. That's a great gig to have. Yeah, God, I was on it for 13 years, and I loved every minute of it. Wonderful people, and I was proud to portray a real organization, the behavior analysis unit of the FBI, who really exists. And so enjoyed doing that. There's even talk of perhaps we're going to come back and do some more. We'll see. But regardless of that, again, I feel very blessed to have had the opportunity to do that. And I just recently finished a new series for Amazon called Forget Normal, which is going to come out the last quarter of this year, which I'm really high on because it deals with 3 young adults on the autism spectrum, which is something I can relate to within my own family. And so it's just a wonderful, wonderful show, wonderful show that I'm looking
forward to that one coming out. They're done by Jason Katims, is the man who did Parenthood and Friday Night Lights, and I think it's just going to be a wonderful series. It's good to be me. I've got no complaints. I feel one of the really fortunate ones in this world, and I never try not to never forget that.
Yep, and it's all because all these people laid down their lives, and that's what we mark on Sunday, May 30th, with the National Memorial Day concert. Everybody tune in, check it out on PBS. Sort of like you, I'm sure you watch it, you experience it once, and you're hooked, and you keep coming back every year. So everybody, check it out.
Absolutely.
All right, hey, thanks, Joe Mantegna. It's great talking with you every year, but we appreciate it every year.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.